Hello, today I'm going to be doing a video on Shakespeare Monologues, and I'm going to be sharing some comedic and dramatic monologues, so there's going to be like a mixture of both genres. And also I'm going to share with you female and male monologues. And I'm going to put up on the screen now a very useful website that I used when I was looking for Shakespeare monologues. And I'm kind of just doing this video because I know some people really struggle with Shakespeare and don't really know where to start because there are a lot of plays and also a lot of monologues within those plays. So it is hard to kind of sift through them and find which one's best for you, so I hope these give a good variety. Shakespeare's texts come in verse or prose, and verse is basically a set rhythm. It's what normally, if you're, for example, auditioning for a drama school, they'll ask for it to be in verse, not prose, because prose is like not a consistent rhythm. I have included a couple in prose if it is accepted for wherever you're auditioning or using this monologue for. Also, for some of these, make sure you check it is actually the right time. For example, for some auditions they ask for it to be 2 minutes long, so make sure that the text is 2 minutes because some of them are a bit shorter, but they're still really good in case you were using them for another type of audition. So let's get to it. Comedic monologues first. The first one is Phoebe from As You Like It, and it's a monologue that starts with "Think not I love him," and it's from Act 3, Scene 5. And I've written down like a description of each, so you know, if you like the sound of it then you can have a look at it. This is a really funny monologue. I watched it being done at the Barbican when that was on, and yeah, it's just a classic. Phoebe wrestles with her sudden affection for Ganymede, who she does not know is Rosalind in disguise. So it's funny because it's a case of mistaken identity, and she thinks that she loves this man who has come into her life and just insulted her, basically. So it's just her going back and forth, and it's quite an easy one to make funny as well if you have that comedic timing. My next one is Julia from Two Gentlemen of Verona. It's in Act 1, Scene 2, and it starts with "Oh hateful hands to tear such loving words." Basically, Julia is conversing with Lucetta regarding falling in love. When Lucetta reveals that she has a letter from Proteus, who is Julia's love, Julia demands to see it. Upon being teased over the letter, Julia rips it to shreds and sends Lucetta away, and then, once alone, Julia laments over her ripped letter. So yeah, it's just her basically berating herself and being upset over the fact that she's torn up this letter from her love. My next comedic one is Viola from Twelfth Night. Now this is a common one, but a good one, and it's in Act 2, Scene 2, and it starts with "I left no ring with her, what means this lady?" Flashbacks to when I did this. In this scene, Viola believes Olivia is in love with her. She then starts feeling sorry because she knows how weak-minded women are and think about the love triangle that has been created. So yeah, it's just funny because again, it's Shakespeare's mistaken identity and gender swapping, so there's the comedy in that. Next is Launce, I think that's how you say it. Launce, oh that even sounds wrong, okay. From Two Gentlemen of Verona, and it's in Act 2, Scene 3, and it starts, "Nay, 'twill be this hour ere I have done weeping." Sorry that you have to listen to my Shakespeare. Basically, in this monologue, he's basically berating his dog called Crab for ungentlemanly behaviour. And it's just a fun, silly monologue. Then there's Benedick in Much Ado About Nothing. Now this one is in prose, so don't look at this one if you have to do one in verse. But it's in Act 2, Scene 3, and it starts with, "I do much wonder, that one man, seeing how much." Starts with "I do much wonder." Benedick is basically scorning Claudio for the man he has become. He questions how love can turn someone into a completely different person. Then there's Hero from Much Ado About Nothing. Now this one is kind of two chunks of text. There's like one line in the middle from another character, but obviously if you take that out, it makes one chunk of text. My friend ended up doing this and it was very entertaining to watch. So it's in Act 3, Scene 1, and it starts with, "Good Margaret, run thee to the parlour," and then it continues on the next paragraph with "Now Ursula, when Beatrice doth come," and then to the end of that. It's in Leonato's garden, and Hero prepares to trick Beatrice into believing that Benedick loves her. So it's just her plotting with her maids. So she's speaking to one person and then she moves on to speak to another person about her plans. Then there's Antipholus of Ephesus from The Comedy of Errors. It's in Act 5, Scene 1, and it starts with, "My liege, I am advised what I say." So he seems to be confused about the events folding because Comedy of Errors is literally in the title. It's a whole bag of confusion, which is always funny. So he believes everyone is against him, specifically focusing on the jeweller required to fetch a necklace. Antipholus is never given the necklace and he blames the jeweller, but the jeweller is also confused, saying he gave Antipholus the necklace, and then Antipholus is arrested. So if you like a whole lot of confusion and mistaken identity, then that's the one for you. Now, the next one is Barone, I don't know, it's spelled like this, from Love's Labour's Lost. It's in Act 3, Scene 1, and it starts, "And I forsooth in love, I that have been love's whip." He's basically lamenting falling in love with Rosaline in spite of his oath to the king. Now my last comedic one is Rosalind from As You Like It. It's in Act 3, Scene 5, and this is the speech that causes my first comedic suggestion, Phoebe's speech. So it starts, "And why, I pray you, who might be your mother?" Rosalind, who is disguised as Ganymede, sets Phoebe straight for being rude to Silvius, the man who loves her. Now on to dramatic monologues from Shakespeare. And to be honest, some of these dramatic ones you could probably make comedic, and some of the comedic ones you could probably make dramatic. I'm just putting these into my categories. You may agree or disagree about the placement of some of these, but it's fine. Some of them were quite hard to put into categories because I was like, wait, is this actually funny or do I only find it funny? So it's not that serious. Just a preface. So the first one, of course, is one that I did. Have to include it somewhere. I did this my first year of auditioning, and it's Imogen from Cymbeline, Act 3, Scene 4. "I see a man's life is a tedious one." So Imogen has to run away and is disguised as a man, speaks of how difficult she finds the life of a man. But yeah, it's just quite high stakes for Imogen because the whole play just is high stakes for her. Like, God, that girl does not have some great people in her life. The next one is Isabella from Measure for Measure. It's in Act 2, Scene 4, and it starts with, "To whom should I complain? Did I tell this? Who should believe me?" And Isabella is basically feeling a bit sorry for herself, and she basically decides to visit her brother Claudio in hopes that he will agree with her that her chastity is more important than his life. Again, another kind of messed up family there. Next is Adriana from Comedy of Errors. So this is the wife of one of the Antipholuses, and it's in Act 2, Scene 2, and it starts, "I, Antipholus, look strange and frown." And Adriana is basically asking her husband why he no longer acts like he loves her anymore. She asks him if he would care if she cheated on him. Quite a strong one. Next is Sylvia from Two Gentlemen of Verona. It's in Act 4, Scene 2, and this is another one that I did for my auditions, and it starts, "O Eglamour, thou art a gentleman." Basically, as it's not safe to travel alone as a woman in those times, Sylvia asks Eglamour, who is like her knight, her childhood friend, if he will accompany her on her travels to find Valentine, who is her love, who has just been banished. So it's quite high stakes for her as she wants to go find him. The next one is not actually a named character really. The character's called Jailer's Daughter, and it's from Two Noble Kinsmen. It's in Act 2, Scene 4, and she is like a small character, but I really like this speech. It starts, "Why should I love this gentleman? 'Tis odds he will never affect me." And basically she has a prince in her father's prison because he's the jailer. She's kind of battling with herself whether she frees him or not, and at the end she decides to free him after kind of going through like, oh, he's a prince, you know, he should never love me, but he says such sweet things to me, etc. But it's kind of sad because he is playing her to escape because he will never marry her. But yeah, it's just her kind of battling with herself. Next is Bassanio from Merchant of Venice in Act 3, Scene 2, and it starts, "So may the outward shows be least themselves." And in the speech, Bassanio is carefully examining the 3 caskets from the riddle given to him, and he just puzzles over their inscription, as if he chooses incorrectly, he will lose Portia's hand in marriage, who is the girl he likes. But to marry her, he has to overcome this riddle and choose the right casket. So pretty important for him, pretty serious. Next is Amelia from Othello in Act 4, Scene 3, and it starts, "But I do think it is their husbands' faults." So Amelia is explaining that there are women in the world who would cheat on their husbands, but it's usually not the woman's fault. As she says, it's usually the husband's fault because they cause the woman to cheat due to neglect, jealousy or abuse. This is a nice kind of female empowerment one. She's a very strong woman, so it's a nice speech to do in that sense. Next is Edmund from King Lear. This is in Act 1, Scene 2. and it starts, "Thou nature art my goddess to thy law." Edmund tries to reason why being a bastard should not keep him from what he believes to be rightfully his. So it's all about like power and conflict, and it would be nice to kind of justify to yourself how like his reasonings are valid, maybe. Don't know, see it from his side, his point of view. Next is Proteus from Two Gentlemen of Verona. In Act 2, Scene 6, and it starts, "To leave my Julia, shall I be forsworn?" So Proteus is basically considering pursuing his friend Valentine's lover, Sylvia, and abandoning his already professed lover, Julia. So he's gonna like betray his friend because he suddenly fancies his mate's girlfriend, which I think is pretty dramatic, you know, he's having a bit of a moral conflict there. Next is Angelo from Measure for Measure. In Act 2, Scene 2, it starts, "What's this? What's this? Is this her fault or mine?" So Angelo muses out loud about his newfound feelings for Isabella, who is the same person from the speech I mentioned earlier. So yeah, just another kind of love one, moral conflict. Then there's Iago from Othello in Act 2, Scene 1, and it starts, "That Cassio loves her, I do well believe it." He confesses that he too lusts after Desdemona, though it is partly because he suspects that Othello slept with his wife. However, he is also perfectly satisfied with simply seeing Cassio drive Othello insane with jealousy, because, you know, he is the villain of the piece. And there's another one in Othello as well, in Act 2, Scene 3, and it starts, "And what's he then that says I play the villain?" And Iago just jokes about the irony of the fact that his so-called villainy involves counselling Cassio to a course of action that would actually help him. Iago reminds the audience he does the most evil when he seems to do good. So yeah, just another fun villain character to analyse there. And the final one I have is Lewis from King John. In Act 5, Scene 2, it starts, "Your Grace shall pardon me, I will not back." So he is ordered to withdraw his army. He refuses, saying he is too highborn to be ordered about or used as a tool by any other power. It's kind of him like putting a finger up to the guy he's talking to. So I hope that was helpful and it's made it a bit easier to find a Shakespeare speech now, as I know it can be a bit overwhelming when like looking at all the different ones. So hopefully that's helped narrow it down, or maybe made you interested in a particular play to look at. And if you have any other suggestions of good speeches, then put it down in the comments and you may help someone out. Also, if you're struggling for contemporary monologues, I do have a video on that, so click the card up above, or find it on my channel or my drama school playlist that I have of all my drama school related videos. And if you like the type of videos that I do, please think about subscribing. So that is everything. Have a really good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!